Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Her Story Circle. This is Gertrude Mache here in beautiful Melbourne, Australia. And today I am graced with the presence of yet another fascinating woman. Welcome, welcome, welcome to our tribe. Please tell everybody your full name, where you're based, and share your story with us today.
I'm Dr. Jocelyn Mull. And I live in California, in Los Angeles, and I'd like to share my story with you today so that you understand more and more about me and what has propelled me forward. On January 12th, 2008, my son was violently murdered. He was in Beverly Hills, where they say it's the place to be, but he was there on that street by the Beverly Hills Center, and he was going back to his car because a party had been broken down, and they said that someone had a gun and that it was going to be some problems. My son had never gotten into the party, and he was standing on line with his group of friends, and all of a sudden he's watching everybody jumping over fences, jumping over the railing, and they're all going to trying to leave, and he sees this guy who was trying to get a ride with my son. And I had told him before, you don't ride with all those people in your car. You be very careful. And I had spoken to him at 10:25 exactly. He passed the phone around in the car because it was a joke that, oh, my mom's calling. She wants to make sure we're all okay and that we're going to be going home, and etc. And when he got to Rosewood and La Cienega, there was a street light that was up. And with that street light up, the young man who wanted to shoot the guy that wanted us a ride from my son, he started walking closer to my son, and my son noticed the guy at the street light, and he was staring, trying to figure out, who everybody was. And they said, my son just said, why is he looking at me? And then the young man that was trying to get a ride, Aaron told him no. And Aaron told everybody that was in the car with him, 4 people, go and get in the car. And he was getting ready to turn and go to the car himself. And that's when the young man fired. He fired 2 shots. One bullet went into my son's neck. So it was a rapidly fatal gunshot wound. And what was violent is that, so he was hit twice. The bullets, those bullets, they're like cop killers. They explode in you. So it just blew out his larynx. The bullets went down into his chest and expanded it. And then it went up into his upper thoracic spine. And he dropped down to the ground. His friend was watching. His best friend watched him die. He hit the ground and he was shaking his legs. Things you think that's on television that may not be true, it's really true. They do shake their legs and their body shakes until it's over. And I remember getting a telephone call telling me that something happened. And I had to leave my house quickly and come to the hospital for my son because they couldn't find him and they believed that he had been shot. So there were about 500 or 600 children all over the street, all in the back area. They were all on that place where the street light was. And then when I got there, I ran inside the restaurant, Norm's, and I said, well, where's my son? And so I went over to the gang members. I had taught them. So I asked them, I didn't have fear. I said, where is my son? They said, they don't know. We didn't see him. And so then I went outside and the lieutenant came to me and she said, who are you? And I said, who are you? and she pulled out my son's driver's license and his school ID. And I looked at her, and when I saw the blood, I pushed past her like she was a feather, and I ran to the area in the back where my son was laying down by the street light, and there was blood everywhere. I didn't know what to do, so I went and I looked at all that blood, and it makes a big difference when you see blood like that. I reached for my son because I wanted to like shield him or protect him, but he was actually dead. And when the coroner came up with the van, they wanted me to release my son, and I told them no, I can't, because I couldn't deal with the fact that in my mind he really may be dead. So it was going back and forth, and the police couldn't get me to release him. And then they sent out the people with the coroner that they put him on that little cart, and they put him inside of the van. I didn't want to let go of my son. And I sat there and I said, no one can undo what was done. You can't unsee what you saw. And those are painful things that you deal with when it is a violent, what do they call it? Moments of violence. And to see that I saw my son in all that blood, and his face just looked like, see, what happened was, it's like he had no intent to be involved in whatever it was. And he gets the bullet, and the young man that the bullet was for ran from the scene. And by the time I found my son, everybody was gone away from that area. And when they heard me scream, I declare it was 500 children came to the back into the area, and the police were trying to get them out of there. And I was just laying there on the floor, on the ground, and I couldn't move. They put my son inside of the coroner's truck, and they took my son away. But it was a fight. I had blood all over me because I was fighting them with, no, you can't have him. So I didn't know what to do. But when the police had come and they began to interview me, and my sister showed up, my sister Iris showed up on the scene. She came to the area where I was, and she said, oh my God, they thought I was the one that was shot because I had all the blood. And I said, no, it was Aaron, and they say he's dead. I still didn't believe it because I had just spoken to my son at 10:25, and here it was 11:25, an hour, and he's dead. So what happened to me that night, I went into what my the therapist told me. I went into shock and post-traumatic stress disorder, because every time I heard gunshot or I saw blood, it triggered me. And I would often in my house go someplace and hide if I heard shots, and not be able to do anything. I just laid on my bed. And my dad, he would come over, and he ended up basically staying with me. He wouldn't leave, only to go get food, because I couldn't drive. I didn't understand what was going on. I felt just like he said I was just laying there, not moving. So he covered me up, and he would cook food. He would take care of the house and do everything that he had to do for me. But it was like the young man didn't get away because he walked them to the scene the next day, and the young man told the detectives that the magazines that they saw were from that bullet, were from that gun. And they picked him up, and they took him back down to the precinct, and they held him. They held him. They detained him. And I asked my sister, I said, well, it's morning time. Let's go to the mission where the coroner's office is. And I want to know if my son is really there. So your mind is like it played tricks on me for me trying to understand what exactly happened to my son. And I was crying hysterically. No one could get me to calm down. And when I got to the police precinct, I learned that the young man was there. And of course, I wanted to bogart everywhere to find him. And they moved him from Hollywood Station to 77th Street so that I didn't know where he was. It was the hardest moment of my life. My son had just turned 18 years old. Maybe 2 weeks, 3 weeks, he had turned 18 years old. And he was just beginning to understand how to navigate through life. And I don't know if any of you have ever had a child or someone that you love dearly, and they're gone, and they're gone violently. I took the autopsy paperwork and I put it all over the walls in my bedroom. And I looked at every aspect of what was going on. I studied it so I could know this is exactly what happened at this moment, and at that moment. And I kept calling to the mission house to make sure, the coroner's office, to make sure that Lieutenant Golden, that he would give me the information. How did my son actually die? That's how I know where the bullets went and how they pulled out his larynx and all of that. And I'm not saying it for shock and awe, but as a mother, I had just seen my son, and he was supposed to come home at 1 o'clock in the morning. So it was a very difficult time for me to try to get myself together. I couldn't do anything. And we had my son's funeral on the 23rd of January. And it was filled to capacity. There were thousands of people there on the inside, and there were hundreds of the youth on the outside. They couldn't get into the area where the church was because we had reached capacity. He was a young man that was loved. He was a young man that we poured life into him. He was a lead percussionist in LA County, and he had like 12 different scholarships where he could go to school and he could learn to do, he wanted to become a recording engineer, and he still wanted to play the drums. So he was set to go down to Prairie View. Of course, best laid plans. The young man that murdered my son was 17 years old, and he would have been 18 in June. So I kept going to the administrative hearings, and I began to understand the process. The DA explained it to me, and I compiled, because in my job, I was a compliance auditor, and I worked due process, and it was the legal end of special education. So I knew how to frame circumstances, and I looked at them, and I gave the book to the DA, and he laughed because he said, "This is what I would do." I said, "Yes, I know, but I researched it according to the penal codes and everything, and I learned that this is called transferred intent. Whenever you shoot someone, you may miss your target, but you shoot someone and you kill them, it's called transferred intent, and that's first-degree murder." So they were worried about me because I was really declaring all the information. And my sister stayed close by me. We went down to the police station, and when we get to the police station, I passed out. I don't know what happened. I just remember waking up and I was on the chair and they had finished everything. So what I'm saying is, I lost my greatest joy. I lost what I thought was my greatest love. I lost the opportunity to see my son go to school and graduate, get married, all the things that parents look for their children to do. Have a grandchild. I won't ever have that. And I just wanted him to come home. And I had to realize that he's not coming home. Now, the end of this is April 19th of this year, 2024. I got a call from the DA, and the DA said that they were going to do a resentencing of the young man. He had gotten 75 years. What happened is I had to go to court and give my impact statement again, and I was set to tear up that courtroom. And when I got in there, I looked at the impact statement that he had written to me, and the judge said, "Are you ready to give yours?" And I said, "Yes, I am." I get up and I was angry. And I want to show you how love works. I want to show you how when you have a divine relationship with the Lord, what happens. I went to stand up and I was mumbling, and I looked around the courtroom. There were 3 rows deep with his family. And then he was there, and his attorney was there, and the DA and the judge. And he says, "Now, what do you have to say?" He said, "Stop mumbling." I said, "Well, the Lord told me to let him know that I forgive him." There was like a lull. It was a deep hush, and you could hear his grandmother crying. I turned around and looked, and they were crying. I said, "But I forgive him. If I'm an ambassador for the Lord, then I have to forgive, because love is what the ultimate aim is, that we love one another as we love ourselves." And I let him know that, yes, you might have taken my son, and you're going to live with that. But I said, I have to forgive you, because when I leave this courtroom and go out of that door, I'm done. Not angry anymore. I just forgive you for everything that transpired in my life. And when we got ready to go, this is one of the last things that I want to say, is that I went to exit the courtroom, and my father said, "Well, how do I know you're not going to kill her? She forgave you." And he told him that he had to repent. And when I was on my way out of the door, the 3 rows of his family members, I reached for the grandmother, and she came over to me, and I hugged her, because she couldn't believe that I got him released, because I said, "I forgive. I'm not angry. There's nothing else I can do. He's not going to come back. No matter how much I want this child to pay the penalty for it." She hugged me. The father hugged me. His brother, his sister, his aunt, and his uncles and cousins and others, they all started hugging me, and we were in the hallway, and it was like a praise fest. And the police came out because they thought that we were fighting, but it was a praise fest. Everyone was crying. And I just looked around, and, they took the young man back, and within 3 weeks, he was released. He's out on parole, and he won't come around me or near me. They let him know he had to stay away. But forgiveness, it's not so much for them, it's for you, because we have to forgive. We have to realize that I realized that I was dying inside, because I couldn't get over the fact that he's dead. But the moment that I forgave that young man, my life has been forever changed. I just cried and cried many nights, and I spent some time talking to his grandmother so that she could tell me about him. And I said, "I understand." And she says, you're serious, you forgive?" I said, "I have to. This thing is real. Love is what matters in everything that we do. And forgiveness is important, because, and then when you go to forgive, you got to realize things that happen in your life from years gone back that you have not let go of, all of that bitterness and all of that root of bitterness and all that hatred and all that depression and all that war in your mind, chaos and confusion and mental instabilities and moments of it, all of that comes back up. all of it. But then the Lord showed me day by day how to let it go, how to break down. And I'm here to tell you that it was a difficult moment in my life, but I realized that my son was not coming back, and I had to let go so I could live. And so I forgave. I forgave him. I forgave him.
You know, I do not have the words to console you. I am lost for words, but all I can say is I'm really sorry for your loss.
Thank you.
There's nothing like losing and burying your child. I think this is a story that will touch any mother or any parent, anyone who's listening to this story right now.
Mm-hmm.
Now, how did you cope with the immediate aftermath of such a violent loss? And what support systems were in place for you?
There were none. I called everybody, and I told the pastor and the children's leader and other people that I knew, and I was telling them that I'm done. I took all my medication and put it inside of a vase, filled it up with water, and I started drinking it because that was going to be my exit. I was like on the yellow line in the middle of the road, and I couldn't get myself to understand that. I said, I'm a believer. This is after he was dead. I almost committed suicide, but it didn't happen. And in May of this year, I realized that if I let go, and I go to the Lord and I talk to the Lord about all that I was feeling, I went into counseling. I started spending more time with my dad. He was my rock of Gibraltar. Mm-hmm. He was with me no matter where I went, and I was with him. And my son's father, on the way to the trial in the very beginning, he was gunned down. He was a federal agent, and he was gunned down. And he was left hogtied and thrown into a river. And when they found him, of course, they let me know, but they had to move the body immediately because they didn't want anything that was happening with their investigation. But from that point, the depression that I was under is gone. The eternal sadness that I had, it's gone. The desire not to live was gone. The desire to love was there, and it replaced all of it. Mm-hmm. And I just feel like, wow, I'm me. I'm free. And I want to be able to serve people. I've been doing one-day conferences on forgiveness, the inner circle of healing. Like you talked about, that big dark hole that is there in grief. I did workshops and things with people, letting them know that you don't really have to hurt anymore. You have an opportunity to face this thing together. And so that's what I do. I've been ministering in different churches. I've been doing one-day workshops in different churches. And then sometimes I do one-on-one with parents who can't handle the fact that their child has been murdered. And it has gone from there to help women who have lost their husband, because mine was lost. It just it has been evolving. And when my book comes out, the book is entitled, It Takes Love to Win, Forgive, ! It's going to talk about the process that we go through in forgiveness. And it's not easy. It's not all fun and games. Sometimes there are moments when you just clutch onto yourself and you can't let go. And you may even scream. It's okay. It's okay. There's no time limit to someone's.
Now, you spoke of your father staying with you during these difficult times. How has family support helped you navigate the grief?
he was there to comfort me. He would come to the house. He would bring food. I would wake up and find him sitting in the Big Daddy chair, sleeping in the house. And I realized the house had been cleaned. And then my sister would call me and they would take me out to eat. Of course, I didn't want any food, but they would take me out to eat. And my brother-in-law, he would always call me and talk to me. And then I had some, I call them sister friends, who are fellow ministers. I am ordained.
Mm-hmm.
And I hold a national evangelist license from the Church of God in Christ as well. And so we would get together and I would just start going to different places, but it took a moment before I could do anything because I still wasn't that strong. I find myself standing outside in the cold, it's raining, and I'm looking for my son. So you still have those moments, but I had to learn how to compartmentalize the emotions. Very good therapist helped me understand how to put it in this box right here. And it may never go away, but I wish that I had my son today. I wish I could hold him.
So how has your experience with this trauma shaped your views on gun violence and the legal system?
I am now the president of the Southwest Clergy Police Council community policing station here in Los Angeles. It made me go forth to become a part of what was happening in the streets, where children may get murdered, adults may get murdered, there may be domestic violence, or there may be things that have gone wrong, and we would do vigils and go. And when I was selected to be the president, they wanted me to bring alive an understanding where death is here, grief is here, here's your family, how can we reunite ourselves back into the world, even though I know we're going to be sad, what can we do for you? And so we go to scenes and we pray, we hold vigils, and Saturday I have a major event happening where it's called Faith in Blue, where we're trying to understand what happened to these young people so that the officers can understand how to help them. And it's a youth-led activity. And so the whole time the youth are going to be talking to the adults in the room. And some of them happen to be rank and file LAPD, but it's important. You know, I just have that desire to help, that desire to be there, to help other mothers who might have gone through, you know, the tragedy that I did.
So what message do you convey to other parents who've lost their children to violence?
You know, each one is different, but when they're broken, my message is my arms, and I hold them. It happens when I'm in church, they come to the altar, and they seem to come to me because it's more than just losing the son to violent death. They've lost their children. They have been trafficked and placed out on the street somewhere, and they come to the altar and they desire to have that hug from me because it represents love. And I have a lot of them that come around, you know, they come around to communicate with me. I love to do books. My first book was Without Notice. It's available on Amazon. And then the other book that I did was called Nguvu kwa Maji. And that Mi Mini Lapata Nguvu kwa Maji, that was about strength in the water, and it was poetry. I had won an award on the circuit. And then I had another one, Goti Paja Imgu, the knee, a thigh, and the leg. And it was talking about the development of a young woman. And I have done maybe 10 other books, ghostwriting for people who are unable to complete their books. And that gives me fulfillment. Gives me fulfillment. I love to do it. I love to be able to connect with people now and hear their story and It's like what's happening right now.
Yeah. And I guess with the writing, there is something cathartic about writing down these stories.
Yes.
It's like you're getting it out of your system, you're putting it between these pages of text, and you're
Yes.
closing that chapter of your life so you can move on. There's a lot of
Forgiveness helps you do that.
Yeah.
Because when
Wow.
you forgive, then God forgives you, and you're doing what he has commanded you to do. That's my belief. That's
Yeah.
my faith.
Wow. How have you found the strength to continue with just daily life and to honor your son's memory?
I wake up and I read the Bible. I spend time at night alone praying. And then during the day, my dad knocks on the door. It's morning breakfast.
Mhm.
So he tries to put me back onto a schedule, and just being with him. I mean, he lives right here with me, and I don't know what I would do. We're inseparable, as they say.
That is so beautiful that you had such a strong bond with your father.
Mm-hmm. And my brothers, they knew about what was going on, and they came to the funeral when it was, they came out here, and I communicate with them. But my oldest brother came from the war. He could not handle the PTSD because there were times when I would get angry and I would lash out
Yeah.
and not be able to cope and function. But I can say that it's not impossible to walk in the liberty of the law of God.
Mm.
It's not impossible. You can be made free. It's a matter of your faith, and that's my responsibility to be able to help you understand your faith. And because of your beliefs, how you choose to live, and that there is a way and a time that it can happen. We just have to stick it out. It took me 15 years.
Can you describe your son's personality and the life that he had envisaged for himself before this tragedy?
He was the most happiest young man that I could ever see. All he wanted to do was goof around, and then he drove my car and went on to school, and he would play drums. From age 6 or 7, he was teaching high school students how to play the drums. That was his specialty, he called it. They would have band camp, and that's what he would do. And then he was a part of the marching band, and he loved playing. He was a part of the drum line. When the movie Drumline came out, he had his sticks. We were in the movie, and they were beating up the chairs. He and his friends, they were playing all the rhythms, So he was a happy young man.
Yeah.
He was really happy.
Life was taken too early.
Yes.
So what do you hope to achieve by sharing your son's story with the world? And what do you want his legacy to be?
Love. I want to share the story of forgiveness. And that, yes, things may have happened, and it may have cost you the life of someone, but I can share with them that I'm still here. I'm still here by the grace of God. I'm still here, and that they can be here, and that they can still have love, and we can walk together in it. Within the book, I want to talk about the process of forgiveness.
Yeah.
Where it goes from your anger, your bitterness, you're trapped, to the point of being free in your mind and able to open it up to love again. I have my moments. I have my days.
Yeah.
His birthday, Thanksgiving, believe it or not, and Christmas time, he's not here around, so I don't celebrate those holidays. And then when January 12th comes, I found myself sitting still and not doing anything. But now I'm okay. I've accepted.
Time is the healer. Yeah. And time is the healer.
It is.
It will have its way with you, but it will come right. So let's go back and have a bit of a time experiment. I'm going to teleport you back to when all of this happened. If you could teleport back in time and have a conversation with that younger woman who has lost her son, in case there is a woman who's listening to this podcast right now, what would you say to her? What would you have wanted somebody to have said? What words could have comforted you at that point?
That I love you and I'm here for you. And let's go the mile. We're going to be on that yellow line in the middle of the road. Let's go through that process and together, and open up myself to be able to minister to myself. It was difficult at first, but because I believed what the Word of God said, I could study it, and I would take her through a series of healing scriptures and conversations, because some people laughed at me. They said, "Oh, you lost your son. He must have been out there in the gangs and all of that." And that's what riff I was getting in the very beginning. But then if I were there for this woman, I would let her know, you know your child. You know what happened. And when the police finally arrested this young man and sentenced him up from juvenile to the adult court, I knew then that he was going to be in prison for a while. And for a while, I was happy with that, because anger and bitterness drove me to that point. But I realized forgiveness freed me.
Mm-hmm.
I can't say that enough. Forgiveness freed me. And if I can go and spend time on the phone, I was on a phone last night with a call until 2:00 in the morning. And we were talking about the children in her home and the needs and the fact that she lost her son.
Yeah, this is too common a story, unfortunately. It keeps happening over and over and over again. We keep hearing these stories. So now let's finish off with teleporting into the future.
Mm-hmm.
If time was an illusion and I could take you to go and meet the 90-year-old you, and you're sitting in your rocking chair, surrounded by your loved ones, if you could go and have a conversation with this wise woman who has led you up until that point, what will you say to her when you finally meet her? I like to ask this question because a lot of women don't realize that she's already in us.
Mm-hmm.
She's the one who guided you through this maze,
Mm-hmm.
so you could come on the other side with this understanding. So what would you say to her?
Hello. I'm happy to meet you. I'm happy to know that you were that inner fire that kept me continuing to not so much struggle, but to find purpose in the things that happen. And I would want to be able to share her with others, as I find it's the only way to really be free. I would just like to sit with her and maybe sit in her arms like I do in the arms of Jesus and hold her and say thank you.
Wow, that is powerful. Yeah, a lot of times we look outside of ourselves for all the answers and the solutions, and yet they're within.
Mm-hmm.
It's about going back inside and listening to that little voice that guides us, especially through these difficult times.
Yes.
So thank you so much for coming online today and sharing your story. It is amazing what you have gone through and come out on the other side with positivity, with love, with healing, not just for yourself, but I think as you heal and other people hear you, you're healing so many more whose hearts
Amen.
are broken. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm honored to be able to be here and share this story today. Thank you for the opportunity.
It's an absolute pleasure. And thank you to everybody who's listened in today. The Her Story Circle is a social impact movement. We bring you the voices and stories of women from all over the world to uplift you, inspire you, energize you, but most importantly, to take you from where you are now to where you need to go. Today's story was incredible. You know, we hold on to a lot of things in life: bitterness, broken marriages, broken relationships, the loss of our loved ones. But forgiveness and love is the key.
Amen.
So tune in again tomorrow when I interview yet another amazing guest. In the meantime, have a fantastic day, morning, or evening, wherever you are in the world, and bye for now. And thank you again, Dr. Mull.
Thank you.